recording. Welcome, everybody. I am so happy you all could join us this evening. My name is Julie Rayner, and I am at the High Point Public Library in High Point, North Carolina, for those of you coming in outside of North Carolina. And we are going to have a really fun time tonight. Let's see. We are going to be talking with Annalee Huber, who has her newest installment in the Lady Darby series, A Perilous Perspective, and we'll get to hear her thoughts about that, and hopefully they will have some time at the end for y'all's questions as well. The High Point Public Library is proud to host this, and as much as we are happy to host, we have some other folks that we are in partnership with to make this possible. Angel Schroeder from Sunrise Books in High Point, who has copies of Anna's books, and Berkeley Publishing as well, who is helping to make this possible. So thank you so much. And let's see. I'm going to go ahead and I will show this book. I don't know. I'll switch the view here so everybody can. Nope, this one's better. Okay, so I have my copy of A Perilous Perspective. So hopefully you all will run out and buy a copy. And if not, your local library will have it one way or another in a variety of different formats. So that's another way to do this. So let's go ahead and get started. Some information about this book, if you don't know already. Here's a little blurb about it. That's the wrong page. This is the right page. It's an all-new historical mystery in this USA Today best-selling series featuring beloved inquiry agents Lady Kiera Darby and her dashing husband Sebastian Gage. Argyll, Scotland, July 1832. After a trying few months in Edinburgh, Kiera and her husband and investigative partner Sebastian Gage are eager to escape to the Highlands with their 3-month-old child. Kiera is overjoyed for her cousin Rye and her detractor turned friend Charlotte, who are being wed in a private ceremony at the estate of Rye's great uncle, the Marquess of Barbrek, in what seems to be the perfect wedding party. So that is our teaser intro. And I'm just going to give a quick introduction to Anna as well. So Anna is known for her novels that are set in specific historical time periods with a genuine development of the relationships between her characters. She was recognized for A Study in Death, Lady Darby #4, which received the Daphne du Maurier Award for Excellence in Mystery Suspense Novels, also known as the Daphne Awards. In 2016, A Perilous Perspective, as we've been talking about, is the 10th installment in the Lady Darby Mysteries, is the book that we're talking about tonight. And Anna herself is a summa cum laude graduate of Lipscomb University in Nashville, Tennessee, where she majored in music and minored in psychology. And she currently lives in Indiana with her family and is hard at work on her next novel. I also would like to share just a few thoughts about A Perilous Perspective since I have been lucky enough to read it ahead of time. I've always enjoyed historical mysteries with strong female protagonists, which definitely includes the Lady Darby mysteries. What's unique about Kiera is that she is presented in an authentic manner without glossing over her insecurities and doubts, which makes her all the more relatable. I particularly enjoy Anna's exploration of Kiera's family life in this novel and how she's able to come to terms with questions that she has about her family's past. And each novel in the Lady Darby series allows the reader an even deeper glimpse into who Kiera and Gage are as people. And as someone who really appreciates character development, these novels and A Perilous Perspective in particular really appeal to me. Anna is a novelist whose well-researched historical contexts and evolving character development compel you to want to follow each installment in the series. Please welcome Annalee Huber.
Thank you so much for having me. This is just lovely.
So we are excited to have you here. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off with some questions that I've pulled together for Anna, and hopefully please go ahead and chat in or put in the comments questions that you might have, and hopefully we'll have time to get to those as well. Okay, so let's start out with this one. If you had to describe Kiera in 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
So I think one very defining trait for her is loyalty. She, because of the situations in her past, because she's kind of awkward, she's not the social darling. Loyalty is very important to her, loyalty to her family, loyalty to her special friends. And so, you know, that's definitely one of the things that drives her. She's very observant, which comes in handy when you're solving murder inquiries. And it also comes in handy because she's a portrait artist. So, you know, art, she's very artistic. She has an eye that sees things, you know, differently than the average person because of her background and her gifts. And also, I would also say she's empathetic. She's very good at not only observing, you know, people and how they look and see, but what's behind how they look and see, and behind their actions and things. And that actually helps her also in her investigations.
Wonderful. So this story focuses a lot on Kiera and her family, especially her mother, who died when she was young. How does your relationship with your own family influence the family relationships in this story?
So I have a very large family. So it just feels natural to me to write those extended family members. I've been very blessed that I have 5 siblings. I have, my husband has 4 brothers. I mean, so then they marry and they have kids. And then I always grew up with my aunt, knowing my aunts and uncles and cousins on both of my parents' sides of the family, and we still all get together. So that definitely influences me to write about them and to really expand, you know, Kira's universe, and the fact that they have all these people, you know, people had big families, you know, I mean, so, so that's part of it, that part that makes me want to bring in their family. And then I would say, you know, we all have our own struggles and questions about parents and who they are and where they came from. And I'm fortunate that my parents are alive, but I try to think of it as, you know, if Kira was, you know, Kira didn't get to know her mother. She didn't get to know her father past the age of about 20. So she has all these questions that are unanswered. And as she's becoming a mother, of course, that would make her have even more questions. So.
I'm not sure what's going on with the audio. I'm trying to figure that out.
I think somebody's got their mic on maybe, and so we're getting. Because it looks like there's a few that are muted.
Yeah. Let me just go ahead and do that. Okay, that's better. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. In your Lady Darby series, your characters seem to grow and develop over time. And since you've gotten to know if you've been reading this series, you've gotten to know the characters over the course of 10 books. Actually, let me go back up. Since you, as the author, of course, have gotten to know these characters through the course of 10 books, does this come easily for you? What does this process look like in terms of just kind of watching their growth and development?
I guess it muted me. Sorry. Okay, start over. So for every book in the series, when I started out, for every character, especially the main characters, but even the secondary characters in that, I create up these psychology worksheets, um, where I really delve into, who they are and where they're coming from and what their motivations are. And some of them are pretty extensive, especially for the main characters. And so it helps me really to understand them. And in every book I adjusted, it gets tweaked because they're in a different place and they've experienced different things, and the things they're going to confront in that book are different. And so that helps me to understand them myself. That way, when I'm writing the book, I can hopefully translate that to the readers, and also make it realistic, to what a real person would be like. So I guess that's how I approach it. That's really, and they live in my head too. I mean, authors talk about this all the time. It sounds crazy, but they do. They kind of live in us because they're part of us. And so just watching them grow and morph and change just feels natural.
Yeah. So what do you hope your readers take away from this particular story?
I think a big part of it is, when I became a parent, I will say this is the first book after Emma was born, their first child. Your life changes. It changes in so many ways. And I think it changes, but it also is important to still be who you are and true to who you are. And so that's part of it for Kira. It's part of her journey in this book. And part of it's with her mother, just understanding that our parents are people too. It's easy to see them as just, your parent, your mom, and not realize they have all this backstory and all this life besides you. So, that's a big part of it. And I mean, it kind of weaves into some of the other relationships in the book. Just, do we ever truly know people, and are we giving them the benefit of the doubt or jumping to judgment? So,
yeah. So could you share with your readers any hints about what's coming next for Kiara and Gage in future books?
Yeah. So, without giving away, well, I guess it's kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit of a spoiler, maybe at the very end. We find out that Lord Gage is in trouble. And so he plays a big part in the next book. And so a lot of it's the exploration we have not gotten to. So Gage found out in he found it in A Wicked Conceit, book 9, that he has a half brother, Lord Henry Care, and all of the repercussions of that. Gage was beginning to have a better relationship with his father. Kira was beginning to have a better relationship with her father-in-law. And then they find out this, and Gage, who's very loyal and honorable, especially, and he was protective of his mother. We know all about that backstory, especially in A Brush with Shadows, to find out that his father was unfaithful and all of that, and that he was trying to hide the fact that he had a half brother and all this. They have not confronted this yet. So that's a big part of book 11. I know Lord Gage is a character that people love to hate. So that'll be interesting. And it's gonna have some Gothic undertones, which I just love. Gothic, I tend to go for that. It's set in a village in Yorkshire. And not everyone is not everything is as it seems.
True, very true. And that's intriguing. So we'll just wait and see what's happening next. That'll be fun. What is your favorite underappreciated novel, just in general, that you've read?
So I love the Julian Kestrel series by Kate Ross. There's only 4 books in it because unfortunately she left us too soon. But my favorite book in the series is called The Devil in Music. It's the 4th book, and it's brilliant. It's a brilliant book. I highly recommend the whole series, but that's my absolute favorite. And everybody should pick it up, especially if you like historical mysteries. They're Regency set. Julian Kestrel is a dandy, so it's an interesting series.
Cool. Also thinking about things that you have read. Have you read anything that made you think differently about fiction?
Yeah, what do you mean by that? I was wondering exactly what you meant. Like,
I don't know, something that maybe struck you as something that you hadn't thought about. I don't know. I'm not sure what I meant by that, actually. Just, is there something that was just sort of unusual about the plot or the characters or the setting that kind of stood out to you?
sure. So a big part of this plot of this book is art forgery. So Kira is a portrait artist, and I haven't got to explore that side of her personality in a while. I mean, that's who she is. And so I thought, oh, how can I work this into a plot? And I was like, what if there was an art forgery? And so I dived down the rabbit hole of that research, and it's just absolutely a fascinating subject. I learned so much about it, and it was really tricky figuring out, we have all these 21st century methods. We can do x-rays and you can scan the image to find the different wavelengths of light and all these things to figure out what, and chemical analysis and all this. They didn't have access to that in the 19th century, so it was really interesting to learn about what she could have known and how she could have figured it out, and how art was treated in the 19th century. I was surprised to learn that we revere these old masterwork pieces now, and we're very careful about the way they're preserved. But back then, in these homes that displayed these paintings, they were left to the care of like the housekeeper, and the housekeeper didn't know how to care for paintings, and they would clean them with like ashes or urine or like these very strange concoctions that would damage the painting. We know this now, and so it was really crazy fascinating to learn about that. And then also that art preservers, the people that did exist to preserve art or to fix art, didn't have that reverence that we have now. And so they would sometimes say, oh, I can make it better. And so they would like take a Rembrandt and just decide, oh, I can make this look better, and they'd make changes to it.
Oh, wow.
And so we've discovered that now, like that art restorers have found those paintings, and they've peeled back those old layers and that. But in the 19th century, it was a very different mindset, and I thought that was really interesting and fun to get to play within the plot.
Yeah, that is fun. I've just recently been interested in some art forgery stuff and some other stuff that I've been paying attention to. So that is a truly a very specific type of operation. So yeah, definitely. How do you deal with the emotional impact of a book? How it affects you as you're writing the story? Because you deal with a lot of wide-ranging emotions in the books and characters that you share about.
Yeah, I mean, it can get heavy sometimes when I'm delving into certain topics, and it can get hard to pull yourself back out of that world. I think it helps me that I have 2 young children, and so I can't stay there. So, which is maybe a good thing, especially when I'm writing very difficult scenes. But yeah, but also, there's that aspect of when you're writing, you do have to make yourself go there to make it authentic. And so sometimes when I know that there's a scene, I'm like, I'm almost preparing myself mentally. Okay, I'm going to have to write this. I've got to be in the right space, and I don't really want to go there, but I really got to go there. And so, there's been times when I've cried while I'm writing, and it's not fun, but then I'm very pleased later on with the way it came out, because I was willing to do that. And I think every art is that way. I mean, musicians, they don't want to maybe touch this emotion while they're singing this song or playing this song, or an artist doesn't necessarily want to go into this headspace. But I think it's part of creativity. It's part of, being true to humanity. So.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. So as this is something that I've often wondered is sometimes it becomes clear, but how do you come up with the titles for your books?
So yeah, so it started out, the first two books in the series were my publisher came up with. And then we kind of stumbled on this pattern of having some kind of term for the Lady Darby series. It's some kind of term that's murder, death, you know, malice, peril, you know, and then there's some kind of art term, which I love. I mean, especially when we get to weave it in clever ways. So, you know, um, matter, you know, arts, a study, draw, shadows, you know, those kind of things. So we really kind of just at this point just throw a bunch of those terms together and try to find a good fit. We actually were just brainstorming for book 11 yesterday because it doesn't have a title yet, and I it's not approved, so I can't announce it. But as it's going along, it's getting a little trickier because we're
Sure.
running out of the art terms that are easy to weave in. So it may have to morph at some point if the series goes on and on. But so far that's what we're sticking with. And
Yeah.
Verity, it's just kind of it started out that I was using riffs off of F. Scott Fitzgerald books and just tweaking them. And then I kind of was coming up with just at this point, it's just whatever we can come up with. That sounds good.
Right. Right. Definitely. I have a question that's just been added in, which is a good one. We haven't talked about this yet. So what are your best research sources for books? Do you talk to experts? Do you go to libraries? What else do you consult as you're researching?
So I do a lot of reading, whether it's social histories or something specific to whatever the book's about. I like to read a lot of primary sources, letters and memoirs and journals and things like that. My best tip is my best tip for finding my best sources is to actually look at the bibliography of other books. I can't tell you how many times I've been reading, let's say, a social history, and in the back, it's got the bibliography of all the sources that they consulted to write the book. And I will find journals and I will find diaries and memoirs and all kinds of things that I didn't even know about that really can broaden it or specify. Sometimes, you know, I need something really specific and it's not going to be in a generalized history, but I can find it in this one person's memoir who was, you know, part of this particular thing. So those are, I mean, that's my best research tip, to check those bibliographies. I do consult the library sometimes. They help me out finding tricky things or ancestry things or all those kind of things. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just reading books and just reading. So, and I also did get to travel to the UK, and maps are so critical. Finding a map for that area, that time period as close as possible, because things change. I mean, I can tell you my new Verity Kemp book that's coming out the end of August, a lot of it, a big portion of it's set in the Netherlands, and the Netherlands in 1920 looks completely different than it looks now. The coastlines have changed, the way the canals are. Rotterdam is a lot of the book is set in Rotterdam, and it was bombed during World War II, and it was almost obliterated. It was like 90% of the city was leveled. So everything is very different, the way the buildings look. So I had to use travel guides from the 19th century, late 19th century, to understand what it even looked like. And then those maps to understand the way everything ran and where the streets were and all those kind of things. So, and a lot of those, though, you can find through libraries, those good maps. So.
Yes, good plug for libraries there. Yes, historic maps. Public libraries are a good place for that. So for sure. Another question that I had was, since you studied music and psychology in college, could you share with us whether you use those disciplines while you're coming up with your books?
So obviously psychology, I think you can see plays into things, especially, you know, I do my psychology workups and I really I really say to myself, my books are about my characters. I mean, they're mysteries. That's the plot. That's what drives things forward. There's romance that thickens things and adds dimensions of tension and danger. But they're really about the characters and the history going on around them. And so psychology definitely plays a big role. And my music actually does too, because especially with Lady Darby, because there is a mindset to an artist, whether they're a painter or a musician or a writer or whatever, that I really tap into when I'm writing Kira, because she has that creative mindset. And also it flows into the language, because I really think of writing as almost music in its own way. The way I write, Verity is, very true. It's 1830s. I'm thinking of the way classical music flows, and it's more formal, but we're also getting into the romantic era where things are getting more, expansive and just expanding in different ways, less rigid. And when I write Verity, it's coming into the jazz age, and so it's the language really has this rhythm and this flow to it that's different than it's only 90 years difference between Lady Darby and Verity, but because of the language and the dialogue and the slang and all of that, it's got its own music to it. So that's how I approach it anyway. It's a feel to it. So when I'm writing, if it feels right, if it sounds right to me, then I know I'm on the right track.
Yeah. Well, I studied psychology in college too, so I was just curious. I was personally curious about that one. So another question here that came in was, how do you divide your day for yourself, your family, your career, the balancing tricks, anything that you can share about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it can get tricky. So my husband and I both work from home. So right now, my average work day is that I get up with my 8-year-old at 6:20, and I get her ready for school, and I get her on the school bus, and then I go to work. And my husband actually will get up with our preschooler, and he takes care of her till she goes to preschool. So on an average day, I get to write from the time my oldest child goes to school until I need to go pick up my preschooler. So I get a nice chunk of time. And then in the afternoon, when the girls get home from school, I'm mom. That's my mom time. And I'm running them to ballet or softball or whatever. And then, we have dinner time as a family and all that stuff. And then in the evening, if I'm on deadline and I'm running behind, I end up having to work again. But optimally, I'm not running behind. And so that's more free time and time with my husband and all of that. I try not to work on weekends, but like I said, when there's a deadline, you got to meet it. You end up working when you can work. Unfortunately, I don't have deadlines all the time. So that doesn't happen all the time. But yeah, optimally, that's what I do. I will say as a tip, if you are in a similar situation, I try to get my writing done when it's my writing time and I have dedicated time and I don't have people interrupting me. I will try to set emails aside, and I'm working up graphics for promo or whatever, all these other things that have to be done. We have, as writers, we don't just write, we have all these other things we have to do. So I try to save those for when I don't have to be quite so focused, or for later in my writing day, if I happen to meet my word count for the day. Or in the afternoon, if I'm sitting in the car while they're in ballet and I'm doing nothing, I can answer emails, I can work up graphics, I can, read a book that I've been asked to blurb by another author, or those kind of things. So that's my tip, to try to get your writing done when you've got the writing time, the dedicated time, and to do the other stuff when you can be a little more distracted.
Okay. So, what is your favorite quote?
So I have a couple. I love the movie Under the Tuscan Sun. And I always liked the quote, "Regrets are a waste of time. They're the past crippling you in the present." And I think my characters kind of grapple with that sometimes. And I also I love the quote. I don't even know who said it or where I heard it from, but I like the quote, always believe that something wonderful is about to happen. I think when you have that mindset, it just makes everything sunnier and more optimistic. So no matter what your circumstances, if you're always expecting something wonderful to happen, chances are something will. So
Definitely. Let's see. Don't see any other questions in right now. So, which is fine. I was going to save this last one, but we'll go ahead and ask it. So you've talked about your balance. You've talked about being with your kids and your writing. So what is the best time of your day for the typical day?
I think it's, I've always been an evening person. I love sunsets. So I think it's like around bedtime, sunset, late, it's that exhale of the day, and I get to put my kids to bed and read them a story and have a little time with them. And then I get to optimally, I get to sit down and relax and enjoy the evening and catch up with my husband and all that. So I think that's probably my favorite time of day. Yeah.
Trying to deal with technology right now, but
I hear you.
Anybody else have any questions while I'm trying to figure out how to how to get the Facebook group weighed in?
I can tell you, just because I'm thinking about it, A Certain Darkness. I just got my ARCs. That's Verity Kemp book 6 that comes out August 30th. So that's what's next for me. So
oh, that's great. That's great. Oh, there's some more. Did you ever get into writing a plot line and decide it's not going to work? And what did you do with that? Or the other way around, did you regret discarding a plot that you had started into and decided to stop? So both ways.
okay. So when I am plotting, I do plot and I do an outline, but it's loose because I've discovered that I get better inspiration while I'm writing. My characters tend to rebel when I structure everything too tight. So I usually don't run into problems just because I adjust as I'm writing. So sometimes my outline is written a certain way and then something happens. And so then I have to adjust it because I've realized this makes the plot way better. Or yeah, I don't know if I've ever discarded anything I've regretted. I'm trying to think. Yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, because I tend to roll with it as I'm writing. That helps because the creativity comes as I'm writing, and so I'm not really stringent with myself. So I don't. It allows me to go with what I think is the best idea in the moment. I will say sometimes when I finish a book, I wish I'd done something different. And then later on, but that's more because I'm tired and I'm so close to the book and it's just, that grind of getting the deadline done. So then when it's set aside for a few months, and I come back to it for copy edits or proofreads or whatever it's at coming back to me from the publisher, I've always then ended up liking it. So I just needed that space. So far, I haven't turned anything in that I haven't ended up loving. So.
Well, that's good. I mean, I think that
Right.
that I can imagine that just as we all went through when we were in school, you write the first draft and it's like, this is horrible, or
Yes.
whatever it is, the essay or whatever, the paper. And then I'm sure there's those moments when you look back and like, maybe I should have done this different or that different. So yeah, that's good to know that we aren't alone. That
Yeah, definitely. Oh my goodness, that first draft, they always say just get it out. Just get it out, because it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be right. But when you come back for edits, you can fix it. You can make that chapter sing, or whatever, the dialogue work better, whatever that's you're stumbling on. So, but yeah, oh my goodness, you guys wouldn't want to read my first drafts.
I can imagine, because you talked about how you look at the characters, and I read somewhere that you really do kind of, the way you look at it is with the characters themselves, their arc, using
Yes.
using the writerly term of how they begin and how they end and how that whole process works. And yeah, I'm sure that the way that you get there sort of meanders, and it may not be exactly what you had
Absolutely.
thought initially.
Yeah. I would say sometimes the toughest parts of the books are working out those character arc moments, those like the intense moments, like just getting them right. It's like, yeah, and not making them feel contrived and all those things. There's a lot of finessing that goes on in edits.
Sure. So we have a couple more. So there's a question about, when did you begin writing, with the additional comment of, they imagine that there's some teachers that have some early writing treasures of yours.
So the first book I wrote was in 4th grade. I just got into writing, and I started writing my own stories, and I had my own like Nancy Drew inspired teens solving crimes. And I think I had a spin-off of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? All this stuff. It was kind of fan fiction, really, when you think back about it. Anyway, and so, and then music was also a big love of mine, and I decided to study that for college. And then I kind of, the writing fell by the wayside in my teen years as you get busy with everything else. And then after college, I was kind of trying to pursue music, trying to decide, did I want to go to grad school? Did I want to go to law school? What do I want to do? And I finally had some time, like free time, to read, what I wanted to read rather than what I was assigned. And so I was reading again, and I thought about, I used to really love to write, and I kind of got this idea for a story. And so I gave myself permission. I always remember this because it was a Memorial Day weekend. I gave myself permission for the full 3 days that I could just write. That's what I was going to do. I didn't have to do anything else. I was just going to write for fun. And I just fell in love with it again. And I realized that's what I really wanted to do. And so I just pursued it basically from that moment. And The Anatomist's Wife was the 5th finished manuscript that I had. So I wrote 4 other books before that I was, gradually getting better. They will never be published because they're not in a form to be published. But yeah, so it took me some time, but that's basically how I stumbled into it. So
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. Is, at least from my experience, you spend so much time in high school and college reading books that you're assigned to read, that I personally got really burnt out on reading. And the ironic thing is, then you would love to read as a kid or whatever, but then all the stuff that you had to, and not only do you have to read it, you then have to analyze it.
yes.
And, as my teenage daughter talks about, the compare and contrast essay, which all of us have done, and has that how, really kind of monotonous that could be. But
oh yeah, yeah. And I mean, there's books that, I remember reading in school I loved, but then some that I hated. I mean, so it was just, it is a slog. It becomes a slog of it, and you don't really get to do as much fun reading, and so you get out and you're like, oh, I could choose what I want to read. So, it's almost exciting.
Right. And I have found too that there's some books that I read in school that I did not like,
right,
but I went back to them 10, 15 years later. And it's like,
Right.
that's really pretty great. So there was a
I do
reason
think
those teachers assigned those books. So,
I know it's funny. It's like a lot of the books they assign are good books. There's a reason they're assigned, all that stuff. But I also think to myself, can we really at 15 grapple with whatever this book is about? You know what I mean? Whereas if you come back to it when you're 30, it's different. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. Yeah, I've done the same thing where I've it's something I read in school and then came back to it and liked it much better when I was older.
yeah, and things that I've read that I thought I liked, and I came back to it, I'm like, yeah, maybe not. Maybe that was the teenage fad thing that I liked. I'm like, okay, maybe that wasn't.
I'm thinking of Wuthering Heights.
Yeah.
I think I liked it when I was a teenager, but then when I reread it when I was older, I was like, oh no. I'm like, it must have been all that angst.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, the brooding moors and the just the darkness of that one for sure. But yeah, so what do you have? What's your next project? What's coming up next for you?
Okay, so yeah, so I've got A Certain Darkness, which is August 30th, which is the next Verity. And then I am writing Lady Darby book 11 right now, which will be out next spring. And then I guess my big news kind of that I had this spring is that I am writing a historical fiction book. This is my first one, straight historical fiction. I got asked to do, and it's set on the Titanic, and it'll be about three sisters who were actual passengers on the Titanic from Canada, first class passengers, and they survived, and this is kind of going to be their story. So I'm excited to tackle it. So
oh yeah, that would be. I'm just trying to imagine the research that you'll be doing for that one. I am sure that will be extensive.
I know when I was first presented with, I had one of my publishers came to me and said, that they wanted a Titanic book and they thought of me, would I want to do it? And I mean, that's basically all they said. They just wanted it set on the Titanic. And so then I had to come up with it. And I was just like, oh boy. I mean, one of the big things for me was I am going to have so much research to do and I have to get it right. I mean, like so many people know the Titanic, you cannot, you know what I mean? So yeah, I've got a huge stack of resources ready to go here. So that's kind of what I'm going to do next once I finish Lady Darby 11. So I'm going to be diving down that huge rabbit hole of research. So yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that you've learned things in your research that you probably never imagined in your life that you would be learning about.
I know I'm kind of a little bit of an expert on body snatching, which
yeah, I was going to say, I mean, the whole, the unlikely profession of Kiera's first husband, is not one that you wouldn't think about very often. And yes, I'm sure the gruesomeness.
There's a few subjects I know way more about than I should.
Yep. So there's an observation that your workspace around you looks very tidy and organized. So
it's organized chaos for sure. Oh yeah.
That's the thing about I mentioned to you earlier before we started that the great thing about these virtual events are things like anybody can come, different states, different time zones, whatever, different countries even, and you get to see authors in their own spaces, which you don't see if they're coming to a bookstore or a library. You see them in the bookstore space, the library space. So that's a unique perspective that we get to have. And I know that, based on, I'm sure everybody's gotten used to sort of the room rater stuff.
Oh, yes.
On, it's like, so you have a plant and a pineapple, so you get a 10 or whatever it is that they use as their rating.
I've seen that, yes.
So, but anyway, and I also know that, people will look at the books, that are on your shelves. Like, what does she have on her shelves? And I wonder why, so
I have my Mary Stuart right there.
Yep.
Who I love.
Yep. So the influences. So here's another sort of random question for you. Do you like trivia games? Playing trivia
I do
games?
like Trivial Pursuit and stuff. Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, I guess with all the research, once again, you have accumulated all this knowledge that's useful.
There are certain topics that, yeah, I'm definitely better at than others.
Yeah, and I know I have found that, being a mother, there are certain topics that you accumulate because, like it or not, you are introduced to all of the TV shows, movies, songs, books
Yes.
that they like, and then suddenly you find yourself being an expert in those things, even though you may or may not actually like them. But it's suddenly
Exactly.
like,
Oh, yes.
oh, so yeah, I have
Oh, yes.
lots of those too. So, oh my. So, anybody else have any questions for Anna? Nothing coming in yet. There was something else I was thinking about. Now I've lost it. So it left my head, but that's okay. So one of the part of the reason that we're here tonight is the I work in a public library, so I'm always reading books and sharing books with people. And one of my favorite things is when I stumble upon a really good author, a really good book, a really good series, is sharing that with other people. Do you have a favorite book? I know you have a lot of influential books and series. Do you have favorites that you like to share with others at this point?
Oh man. So I love Ashley Weaver's. She has two series now. She just started a second one. She's a wonderful author, the Avery Ames series and Electra McDonald series. They're both wonderful. Oh my goodness, I could rattle off a ton. I love PB Ryan's series, Nell Sweeney, I think that's what it's called. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Oh, I just recently read a wonderful historical fiction novel by Tessa Arlen that's coming out this summer. That's about Lady Duff Gordon. It's really interesting. She's actually a Titanic survivor, so kind of funnily. Let's see. I'm always reading research books. Goodness. Oh, I know. I read a book called The Road Less Traveled by Philip Zelikow, and it was a big influence for the next Verity. I highly recommend. It's a hard book to read, but it's wonderful. It's so well researched. So I guess those are a couple I can give a shout out to.
Yeah, definitely. So what's next on your book tour? Are you winding down, or you have more spots that you're traveling to?
Yeah, I have a few other virtual ones. I don't have to travel anymore for the time being. I just got home on Sunday. But yeah, the Ohioana Book Festival, the Ohioana Library has a festival this weekend. It's virtual again. So I have a panel on Sunday for that. And I have I think one more bookstore event next week, and then I'm done. So it's kind of funny when we have these tours. It's a whirlwind right at the beginning, and then it calms down. So it's nice.
Oh yeah. Well, I know that any exposure that you can get, is welcome. And
Yes.
I'm just really so happy that we were able to work this out and that you were able to come and join us tonight. That has been something I've been looking forward to personally, and I'm so glad that the folks were able to come out and join in tonight. So I appreciate that. And You know, I
I'm so
just,
grateful too. I always love it. It's just lovely. It's lovely getting to chat with you. So, and I love
yeah,
libraries. So yeah.
yeah, definitely. So, you know, if you're in High Point or in North Carolina, you know, many libraries have Anna's books. I know that the High Point Public Library does. So we had them a variety of different ways, in print, in digital. So lots of different ways that you can get access um, to Anna's books. And also, you know, visit your local bookstore, especially those independent bookstores. They
Yes.
just like many other small businesses were struggling during some of the closures and things during the pandemic. So if you have a favorite local bookstore, and I would encourage you to get a copy of A Perilous Perspective because it's a wonderful read. I really enjoyed
Thank
getting
you.
to read it. So anyway, I appreciate everybody coming out. And thanks again, Anna. And
Yeah,
it's been
thank you.
great.
Thank you so much.